In late July 2022, the African American Museum of Bucks County put together a multi-stop bus tour of significant locations that relate to the history of African Americans in Bucks County. Let's tag along with the teachers from the Pennsbury School District as they learn about the untold stories and hidden figures of the Underground Railroad stations in Lower Bucks County, Pennsylvania. The first stop on our journey to freedom is the Bensalem African Methodist Episcopal Church. On August 12, 1818, 5 formerly enslaved men, with support from Bishop Allen, started the African Methodist Episcopal Church of Bensalem. Here's the 100th pastor of the Bensalem African Methodist Episcopal Church, Reverend Jones.
And because they were free, they knew that somehow, we can have our own place of worship. So that is when they found this. And not only did they find it, but they bought it. And guess for how much? $25. $25 they purchased the land. Little did our fathers and our mothers know that after 203 years that we would be still here.
At 203 years old, it's the oldest black church in Bensalem. Reverend Jones explains how the parishioners at the time let the escaped slaves know this house of God was a safe place.
That window is the window that not too many places in the United States have it. But what's interesting about it is that that was the window that when the slave catchers would come by, it was not until a light or a candle was placed in the window to let them know that this was a safe place. If you look in the back of the church there, you see the indentation in the ceiling. That is where the slaves would hide in the room. We are known as one of the stations for the Underground Railroad.
In 1848, a Sabbath school was established to teach local African Americans to read and write. Leroy Allen, a Civil War Union soldier and former slave, as well as other black Civil War soldiers, are buried on the grounds of the church. The next stop on our trip is the Bethlehem AME Church of Langhorne.
Hi, we're at Bethlehem AME Church in Langhorne here, African Methodist Episcopal Church. And this is our pastor, Reverend Dr. Tiffany Malone. We belong to the Underground Railroad. And the Underground Railroad, it was 2 leagues that we belonged to. Slaves used to come through here to be taught.
Here, we learn that the Underground Railroad not only borrowed its name from the railroad system, but also its structure.
There were the station masters. They were the ones generally either the homeowner or the one that would see to it that the slaves or the escapees were taken care of until their next destination. Sometimes they were kind of in the open, but that was generally at night. That's when they did most of their travel.
Conductors would guide fugitive slaves from station to station. Private homes, churches, and schoolhouses were called stations, safe houses, and depot. The people operating them were called station masters. The goal was to get to Canada, where people of color could live free, sit on juries, run for public office, and much, much more. It is not known how or when the Underground Railroad officially began, but the independent actions of the African Methodist Episcopal Church and the actions of Quakers in Philadelphia and North Carolina are credited with the beginnings. And by the mid-1800s, these 2 groups are working together to free slaves. Our next stop on the journey is the newly erected statue dedicated to the woman most associated with the Underground Railroad. Harriet Tubman's statue is located in Bristol at the waterfront. Harriet Tubman was born in 1822 and lived to 1913. She's responsible for freeing over 300 slaves and inspiring generations of people all over the world. She's the most known conductor of the Underground Railroad, and she served as a scout, spy, and nurse for the Union Army during the Civil War. She's considered the first African-American woman to serve in the military. Louise Davis's grandfather was Harriet Tubman's third cousin. Louise is a member of the African American Historical and Cultural Society of Bucks County. Here's Louise Davis.
We were still there, so she said when she arrived in this place, not Bristol, she did not come to Bristol, but she came through Bucks County to Philadelphia. She said, I will go back. I will go back and get my family and anybody else who has the courage and the whatever it takes to get there.
Our last stop on our tour is the Continental Tavern in Yardley. The Continental Tavern is a rare and unique find. The tavern was a stop on the Underground Railroad throughout the 1800s. In 1876, a fire destroyed the building and the tavern was rebuilt in 1877. And those rebuilders sent a gift into the future. In 2007, during renovations, the new owners, the Lyons family, discovered a chamber 15 by 15 feet with an 18-inch stone wall. Within that space, they found a chamber that was 4 feet from floor to ceiling. In that chamber, they found artifacts from the 1920s and artifacts from the Underground Railroad. The tavern has become a bit of a museum as discovered artifacts are on display at different locations around the tavern. As our tour comes to an end, the teachers reflect on what they've seen and what they have learned.
I think the impactful thing for me was two different things. This was the church we saw in Bensalem is actually the Underground Railroad. The slaves actually were in the top of the floor and they used the light system as opposed to, I think of Underground Railroad, I always think it's underneath the building, and that wasn't the case there.
What I think is so interesting is the way that it was at a time when, you know, we didn't have cell phones and telephones, and the way they communicated messages to each other through, you know, lights on in the house or blankets on a wash line, and the intricate way that they were able to communicate with each other to help these people come to freedom, or a place where they could feel safe and protected.
In my role as union president, I would hope that I can communicate with our staff at Pennsbury that there are these opportunities, that it's right here in our backyard, we don't have to go far, to be able to connect with a rich history of the Black community here in Bucks County.
So for me, as a history teacher, a teacher in Pennsbury, it really makes something come alive for not only the teachers, the educators, the administrators, but it's also going to be very good to try to make more outreach with students and local community members.
The Underground Railroad is just one of the many untold stories and hidden figures of Bucks County. If you'd like to hear more, please visit our website.